You know, pretty much everything we do online, every search, every photo, every comment, it leaves a trail, a digital footprint that can feel, well, permanent. But what if it didn't have to be? What if you actually had the right to erase parts of your digital past? Today, we're going to dive deep into the right to be forgotten. Seriously, just take a second and imagine that. You Google your own name, and up pops some old legal issue you dealt with years ago, or maybe a really unflattering photo from college, or an article that's just plain wrong. And boom, it's just stuck there. You can't get rid of it. This isn't some far-off what if. For millions of people, this is very, very real. All right, so here's the plan for today's Explainer. We're going to break down one of the most important and, most controversial ideas in modern privacy. We'll start with the person who kicked this whole thing off, then get into the actual law, explore the huge debate at its core, see how different countries are handling it, and finally, take a peek at what's coming next. So our story doesn't start in some fancy government building or a high-tech boardroom. Nope, it starts with one man, just one person, fighting to get his own pass back from a search engine. Okay, so let's meet the guy at the center of all this, Mario Castaja, a citizen of Spain. Way back in 1998, a newspaper published a little notice about some old debts he had already paid off completely. But here's the thing, over a decade later, in the age of Google, anyone who searched his name saw this old, outdated, and frankly, irrelevant information right on the first page. So in 2010, he decided to do something about it. He didn't go after the newspaper, he went after Google, arguing that the link to that information was no longer relevant. And in a groundbreaking ruling in 2014, the highest court in Europe actually agreed with him. That one decision changed everything.
So that one case, it wasn't just a personal win. It literally set the stage for a formal law, turning one man's victory into a legal principle for hundreds of millions of people.
So what exactly is this right to be forgotten? Well, at its core, it's the idea that you can ask a search engine to remove links to personal information about you if that info is inaccurate, outdated, or just not relevant anymore. Now, this is the really crucial part. It's not about deleting the original web page. The article or the photo still exists. This is about removing the link from the search results, making it a whole lot harder to find. And this isn't just some philosophical concept, it's written right into the law. Specifically, you can find it in Article 17 of the European Union's massive data privacy law, the GDPR. There, it's officially called the right to erasure.
Okay, so when can you actually get something taken down? It's not just because you don't like it. You need a solid legal reason. For example, if the data isn't needed for its original purpose anymore, or if you originally gave consent but now you're taking it back. The big takeaway here is that there are specific rules. You can't just wipe something from search results on a whim.
And this is where things get really complicated. Because this, right, it's not absolute, not by a long shot. It's a constant, tricky balancing act between two really important ideas.
So you've got this heavyweight battle, right? In one corner, you have the individual's right to privacy, this idea of digital dignity, the ability to move on with your life without being haunted by an old, irrelevant past. But in the other corner, you have the public's right to know, the freedom of information, and a very real fear of censorship. What if people start using this right to erase parts of their history that are just inconvenient?
And believe me, this isn't some niche issue. We're talking about a massive, massive scale. Since that court ruling back in 2014, Google alone has received more than 1.2 million requests to take down URLs. That is an absolutely staggering number of people trying to curate their own digital history.
But here's the kicker. Just because you ask doesn't mean you're going to get it. In fact, only about 45% of all those requests are actually approved. The majority, around 55%, are denied. This shows you just how tough that balancing act is. You've basically got tech companies acting as judges, deciding on a case-by-case basis where to draw the line between someone's private life and the public's interest.
Okay, let's make this real. How does this play out in the real world? Well, a doctor's request to delist news about an old malpractice suit, that was granted. It was seen as old news that was unfairly harming their current practice. A teacher's request to remove some old personal photos, also granted. But when a politician tried to use the law to get rid of articles detailing corruption allegations, that was denied. Why? Because that information is clearly in the public interest. So who you are and what you do definitely matters.
All right, so this whole thing started in Europe, right? But it's kicked off a massive global argument. Let's zoom out a bit and see how the rest of the world feels about the right to be forgotten.
And wow, the world is seriously divided on this. In the European Union, it's the law, rooted in the principle of data privacy. But in the United States, there's strong opposition because it clashes with the First Amendment and the ideal of free speech. And then you have other places, like Canada and India, that are kind of in the middle, letting their courts figure it out one case at a time.
Now this next part is super important. In 2019, the EU's top court made it crystal clear. This right is not global. So if Google agrees to remove a link, they only have to do it on their European search engines, like google.de in Germany or google.fr in France. That same exact link could still be totally visible on google.com if you're searching from the United States or anywhere else.
So, where do we go from here? Because just when you think it's complicated enough, technology throws a bunch of new curveballs into the mix, making this whole debate even more intense.
I mean, just think about it. You've got AI and big data that can make information go viral in a heartbeat, making it way harder to put the genie back in the bottle. Then you have truly malicious stuff like deepfakes and revenge porn, which make a powerful case for needing a much stronger, much faster way to erase things. All of this just amps up the tension between these giant global tech companies and the local laws trying to regulate them.
And all of this brings us right back to that huge question at the heart of it all. This isn't just a European legal problem anymore. It's a question for every single one of us living in the digital age. Should we all have the right to hit a reset button on our digital past? Is it a fundamental human right to be forgotten, or is it a dangerous door to censorship? The answer we find is going to define our lives online for a long, long time.